Storytelling is about connecting one person to another by describing a situation that hopefully leaves a positive impression upon them. We talk about reading stories to kids at nighttime or whatever, because it gives them this little bit of a reflection. It gives them this idea of an emotional connection to something. It creates this image. That same concept of storytelling is critically important in the job search. It's important that you be able to, based on the value proposition that you've already created, to extend that a little bit more into a story about yourself. And a story such that it's not rambling, and it's directed, and it's logical. And as you can imagine, it usually means you have to write down the key points of your story, just like when you read a book to a child. Write it down so that you can make sure that you practice the key points, so that you don't just meander around. So storytelling is about connecting to another human being with some emotion, some kind of a value proposition that you want to convey to them, because we relate to stories about people. We don't always relate to the ideas of zeros and ones and data transfer of, between computers, let's say, about little factoids. It's about, I remember talking to Randy because he told this story about something. So storytelling is an extension of your value proposition, and it leads right into your resume writing. So you got your value proposition, that concise statement of your benefit to your employer. You've now got a story that you've kind of drafted, and you've got some of the key points written down. Remember, you're not going to read that story to whoever you're speaking with, but you're going to practice it. And by the way, just a side point for a moment, it's so important for you to practice this stuff. You would never have ever gone out on the range for an EOD exercise, training exercise, without having practiced it before you go down range. You practice, rehearse. The same concept applies to the job search. So your story, you write it down, you revise it, sounds good, and when you tell the story, when you practice telling the story to a friend or a spouse or to a parent or whomever, you're going to leave some things out. That's okay. You might add a few more things in, but as long as you deliver mostly the story, you're going to do good. If you never practice your story, it's going to be awkward, most likely. Practice and you'll gain confidence as well. Now, you got your story all lined up. That's great. So now you're going to start writing your resume, because you basically know your value proposition, you know the general approach you're going to take, and you have two choices now about how to write your resume. Choice number one is the one that 90% of people choose, but you don't necessarily have to go that way just because 90% of the people do it. That's called a chronological resume. You start with most recent, 2024, or whatever year, and you go backwards. This is what I did here, this is what I did before, here's what I did before then, and so on until you either were in college or high school or whatever it might have been. That's called a chronological resume. And you write down under each thing the job you held and the key things you did that made you wonderful. I actually believe that unless you're just looking for a quick job, throw that chronological resume together. They're easy to write, knock it out, and you're on your way. If you're looking for something more for a career enhancement, I'm going to recommend to you to do a competency-based resume. A competency-based resume is more difficult to write. It always is going to be a more powerful resume. For example, chronological, you're going to just say the jobs you had. Competency-based could be, I'm an excellent planner. I'm an excellent executor. I drive results. I collaborate. In other words, various attributes that are called competencies. Like, well, in what jobs did you collaborate? Evidence of collaboration, or evidence of dealing with multiple stakeholders, or sales. Where did I have to be persuasive? For example, if someone had a recruiting tour, well, that's a big one, because boy, selling the military. Okay, so that could be a sales competency. So sales competencies take the top 3 or 4 competencies, and then you extract from your chronological resume the examples of what made you really good about driving results. What really made you terrific about building a team? What really made you great about collaboration or researching or sales or whatever it was? And you sprinkle them in. And then the second page of the resume, you'd have a brief summary of the chronological so they know the different dates. And then you have your education in there and any other special things that you might want to add as human interest. So you have a choice to go either way. People always ask me, can you recommend a sample resume? There are thousands of resumes, and all that matters is whatever is easiest for you. The good news is, with the internet, Microsoft Word has many examples of resumes already there. All you do is write in on it, just write over it. Or you can go to the internet, top 10 examples of resumes, top 10 competency-based resumes. And literally, you take it and you just write right on over it. So please do not reinvent the wheel. Do not start from a blank piece of paper. Look on the internet to see samples or top 10 veterans resumes. I mean, there's ways for you to do this. So remember that idea that you're not alone? The internet can be your friend. Use it, okay? Remember also that when you share your resume, if you give it to 5 people, you'll get 5 different eyes looking at it with 5 different sets of feedback for you. It has to be you. It has to be you. Some people say, should I hire someone to do my resume? No, you should not. Just do it yourself because it reflects you. I know it can be a pain, but the reality is if you have your value proposition and you have your story, then writing it will be much easier for you to do. So again, don't start from scratch. Use examples from the internet that sound like you, and then obviously write it with your information so it's factual. Some people start with the resume even before they have the value proposition and story, and that is backwards. Your resume should actually follow you. What do I mean by follow you? When you're talking to somebody, like a friend or something, somebody like that, we will be getting into network more in these episodes. The concept of networking is you have a conversation to tell your value proposition, and I'm in the job search, you just got out of the military, remember you're telling your story, right? And you're going through your 3-minute speech of talking about yourself, and then you say, I'm just trying to see if, who else do you think I should speak with? What are you seeing in the marketplace? Who else do you think might be looking for somebody with my attributes? Or who else do you think I should speak with that has a similar experience? Notice the idea, you haven't even handed the person your resume yet. So I use the phrase, the resume should follow you. Well, thank you so much for your time. Let me send you my resume, and feel free, please, to send it to others, but this will tell you more about me. So some people blanket the internet with your resume. I don't believe in that, because if you send it out 100 times to just random organizations, you're probably going to get 99 no thank yous, maybe 100 maybe. And it can be very depressing. But rather when you talk to people, which by the way, networking is where 98% of all the jobs are. I say again, networking is where 98% of all the jobs are. So do you have to have a resume? Yes, you do. It's just part of our society. It's not something you start with, and it's also something that typically should follow you. Yes, it's part of a job application, typically. I've been in many situations where people have a conversation and say, you're exactly the kind of person that I would like to have join our company. You've already actually had the interview. I'd like you to talk to our HR people, and they're going to require a resume. Oh, okay, no problem. I'll send it to you. but you already have it done, of course. So I want to make sure to say that the resume does not guarantee a job at all, and a resume is not something that you lead with. Now remember, competencies are things that we talked about before, whether it was a leadership competency. And I'm just going to read you some examples, but you can obviously go to the internet and Google top competencies, veteran competencies, or top competencies looked for by employers. So for example, ensures accountability, drives results, collaborates, builds networks, builds teams, cultivates innovation, situational adaptability. Oh, that's a good one, right? Dealing with ambiguity. Oh my goodness, sounds like the military. All right. Manages complexity, persuades, values differences, resourcefulness. Again, made for the military. Plans and assigns. What the heck? Nimble learning. That's the backbone of the military. Things change. Go to plan, backup plan. Being resilient. Courage. And courage not just on the battlefield, but courage to do the right thing. Manages conflict. Drives vision and purpose. Direct work. Strategic mindset. Action-oriented. Instills trust. I mean, my goodness, those are examples of competencies that I actually extracted from the website from Korn Ferry, with whom I used to work. And that was just a small number of the ones that they have listed. But those, almost every one I just said, directly applies to a veteran. And you just have to decide which are the ones, not 20 or so, but what are the 5 or 6 that really reflect you of all those. And that's what you included in your story and in your resume. And that's also, by the way, the difference between a pure chronological resume and the hybrid that talks about your top 4 or 5 competencies on the front page, and then a short chronological summary on the second page, and then any education or special training and special interest on the second page. People sometimes don't understand that through the networking process, those are quasi-interviews. So don't be put off by that, because people think interview very structured, oh my goodness, pass, fail, interview. But really, even the process of networking, you're going to be asked questions that they will also even ask in an interview. So it's important for me to say that. The most common question, statement actually, tell me about yourself. Well, guess what? Hopefully you've got your value proposition and you've got your story to kind of lay the groundwork for who are you and what is it you're looking for. So tell me about yourself is the most often asked question. Now, beyond that, and by the way, here's the cool thing about this. If you just Google top questions asked of veterans, you're going to get a laundry list of the ones that pop up. But some of them are very, very, very simple. So why do you want to join our company? How do you handle stress? Describe for me a situation where you weren't quite sure what to do, and how did you go about doing it? Tell me about a scenario where you actually fell short or failed at something, and how did you deal with the situation? So there's on military.com, there are, I don't even know the number, a bunch, 99, 100, whatever, a huge number of questions that are there. Now, do you have to know how to answer all these questions? Of course not. You would spend all your time just practicing answering questions. But by reading many of them and coming up with answers, you're going to have practiced it a little bit more so that if something similar is asked of you, you won't be, I'm not sure what to go here, okay? So the important thing is, go to these various websites. The questions are there, and then to practice them. Practice, 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 practice. Rehearse, 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 rehearse. Any good troop leading procedure, you got to practice it. And when you practice, things come off more polished. You seem more comfortable and more confident if you've practiced it. If you've only done it the first time right there in the moment, it might be awkward. It might not come off the way that you intended it to. So practice with your friends, practice with your parents, practice with your significant other, practice with your dog. Okay, your dog go, yeah. Okay, all good. So please practice it. Now you might say, I'm practicing because I'm writing it down. No. If you have to pull up your iPhone and reverse the camera and talk to yourself, that's okay. But you have to say the words. Don't just write them down, which is great, but you have to actually say the words so you can hear them leaving your lips. And it's always better if you do it with another human being and don't do just chat, AI chat. Okay. All right. So practice. You will get more self-confidence, and you'll just come off much more smooth.